Hey 12s, it's the Seahawks Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Seattle Seahawks every week, breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Emerald City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get loud, 12s. The Seahawks Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Seahawks Squad Show. I have Anderson Hurst with me. Of course, I have Anderson Hurst with me. That's me. I have Chris Crawford with me, and I have Rob Rang with me today. Corbin Smith is at the game. We'll be getting his breakdown and stuff a little bit later next week. And, of course, Robert Turbin taking the day off before the grind of the season starts. So appreciate those guys doing what they do. But I have my two favorite guys with me. Let's be completely honest. Okay. So we get to talk about a dominant showing for the Seattle Seahawks. I didn't even look at the final score, but it was just complete domination on both sides of the ball. 33-16. There it is. I pulled it up. So, yeah, I mean, lots to talk about. We're going to get our takeaways. We're going to, talk about some of the position battles, maybe a couple concerns if you have any from today's game. This is your Seahawks Squad Show. Of course, we go live twice a week. One of those shows will be a post-game show like it is tonight. Christopher, before I go to Christopher Crawford with his initial thoughts, I'm going to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, now I can go to Chris Crawford for his initial thoughts on the beatdown of the Kansas City Taylor Swifts.
Man, when's the last time we saw the Seahawks attempt 48 rushes, right? Like, just looking at it, and I was like, was this Seattle or was this Navy taking on Wake Forest? No, it was really fun to see just how impressive they were, particularly in the first half, right? Like, and, the second half was fine too. We saw some nice defensive moments, scores kind of misleading too, a breakdown in coverage on a punt return from Sky Moore, not exactly the most enthralling thing or what you want to see, but it's okay to see when you're up by 23 points. I just thought, once again, too, I thought the Seahawks interior looked better than the opponent. And that's one thing to say that about Las Vegas. It's another thing to say about a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, who, of course, are not playing everybody. And, of course, it's not the same motivation. It's not the same schemes that they will face. But just the fact that they looked so much more tough than the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like, and maybe Kansas City a little like, hey, what the heck's going on with this weather? That type of thing. Like, maybe not exactly focused on winning a game or anything along those lines. But it was just nice to see Seattle look like the better team. Yeah, for me, it was like you can't take everything from these games. And I'm tired of just saying, I know it's preseason. So I'm going to assume that every fan knows that it's preseason at this point in time, and that we know that it's preseason at this point in time. But as Christian and I always say on our Mariner baseball show, the Locked On Mariners postcast, we can only react to what we see, right? And all we've seen are two preseason games. So we're going to let you guys know that this looks great. It's dominance on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And I love the word toughness that you use. I'm going to go a step further and say physicality. And just enforcing yourselves on the opponent. It's great. I think there's a mentality change with this group. But it starts, and I think we talked about this a lot with the running game with Corbin Smith and Robert Turbin, is it starts with like the running game. And if you set that tone, the entire rest of the team responds. And you're seeing the effect of that now. And I get it. Like, most of everyone that's playing in the second half is not going to, have a ton of an impact on non-special teams plays. Right. But there is something to be said about up and down throughout the roster, just toughness. And that this is now 2 straight games where you have physically dominated your opponent. So whether that will show itself up in the regular season when it's just your starters playing, I don't know. Right. But it tells you something about your roster when even your backups and third stringers are coming out and physically dominating your opponent. Yeah, what I love too is, I mean, we can just start with the start like we do with the Seahawks, right? Like
Yes.
that very first drive, right? Because George Halani has that awesome kick return that takes it to the 50-yard line, and unfortunately, kind of a questionable holding call, to set
Yeah.
that back. But it happens. If your hands are out on that type of thing, you're probably going to get called, right? But that very first play, you get 13 yards from Zach Charbonnet, right? And
Yeah.
I thought Charbonnet looked awesome today. And all of the running backs had their moments, honestly, outside of the six-string guy whose name is leaving me and might leave me even soon. Anthony Tyus, excuse
Right.
me. All of the running backs had some great moments today, but Charbonnet, that first drive, that was, there's a reason why a lot of people think that guy should be starting for the Seattle Seahawks. And that's not an insult to Kenneth Walker so much as it is a compliment to Zach Charbonnet and potentially how well Charbonnet fits in this scheme, right? Because of his ability between the tackles. And you saw it on the touchdown, right? That 15-yard scamper. You see the athleticism, you see the toughness. He breaks not maybe tackles, but you see that he's able to, show that physicality. Love that word choice, that physicality to get into the end zone. But in between, you saw some good stuff from a bunch of people. You saw that from JSN. You saw, I'm going to go out. Nostradamus Chris is making an early
Here we go.
Right here. I'm going to say that Robbie Oots has 35 catches for the Seattle Seahawks.
I was going to say, this is now a second straight game where they have utilized him in the passing game.
Right. And what I loved was they utilized him with the starters, right?
Yeah.
Like he comes out and he makes that catch. And now AJ Barner makes a nice play. Elijah Arroyo with a play as well. Like this is just kind of what you would draw up and want to see, not just for a first season game. This is almost Madden stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to get everybody involved, right? I want my stats to look good for my dynasty, right? This was such a great first drive that set everything in motion, I think, for the rest of the game. It would be easier to say this in a game that actually matters because, again, it's preseason. But if there was more of that individual effort, or not more of that individual effort, if there was more potential for meaning, right? Like if this was the first game of the season, we would be ranting and raving because that first drive could not have gone any better.
Yeah, Rob, we were just kind of gushing over the Seattle's dominance, physicality, up and down throughout this entire game. How much do you take from that? Offensive line, defensive line, running game,
that's
everything.
one of the things. I take a fair amount from it, to be honest with you. I think that just the level of competition, I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team that's gone to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, that has won the AFC West division, a pretty damn good division, 9 consecutive times. And obviously they didn't start Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or Chris Jones, but there was still their starting, the Kansas City Chiefs starting offensive line. It was still a lot of their starters on defense. And to roll out Sam Darnold in his debut to go 4 for 4 and to lead the Seahawks right down the field, to have the turnover at running back. It just didn't matter who was at running back. I think that's the biggest reason why Robert Turbin isn't with us tonight, guys. I think that he wanted to throw his jersey back on and go run because there was so many yards to be had so easily. So I think that Seahawks fans should be incredibly encouraged by how dominant this performance was. Again, obviously it's a preseason game, but historically, Andy Reid has played his starters in the second preseason game. And that was one of the things that Corbin and I talked about, that last year, the last 3 years in a row now, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Trey Smith, they're all world right guard. They've all started the second preseason game each of the last 3 years. So it almost makes me wonder if Andy Reid, just being the sage veteran that he is, that he recognized, like, hey, we're running into a buzzsaw here. I know that the preseason opener against the Las Vegas Raiders obviously ended in a tie, but you can see on film that Seattle was controlling the line of scrimmage. And so I think that he basically just kind of tipped his cap and said, let's just move on. Bill Belichick line. Let's move on to the next team or whatever. Yeah. Just because I think that they recognize that this was going to be a game that the Seahawks were going to be very, very aggressive. And, the proof was in the pudding. I mean, Seattle was aggressive in their play calling, in starting their players that they started. And obviously the way that they dominated this game, it was very much varsity versus JV out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the second straight week we're saying this, right?
Exactly.
This is why I think we could start to take some things from it. Because, you have those preseason dominant games where they end up not meaning anything when you come into the regular season, right? But if it happens 2 weeks in a row, and like you said, to a traditionally pretty deep team like the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to double up on Rog Rang here since I missed him for the first kind of few minutes of the show. I was kind of speculating like, who knows if that's going to translate to week one. Because starters aren't necessarily playing the whole game today anyway. Obviously they're not, but there's something to be said about the entire roster. Like, from beginning of the game to the end of the game, like your twos are beating their twos. Your threes are beating their threes. So how much can we take from that? And, is that going to translate to the starters kind of enforcing that same mentality in week one?
I think that it will. And, again, week one is going to be against a very good team, the San Francisco 49ers. We all know that they struggled a year ago with injuries. And so, they didn't have the success that the Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, et cetera, are used to having. That said, that's still a very, very talented team. But I love the way that this sets up because it is a bitter division rival that you are at home playing up against. And it just feels like Seattle is amping up towards that. So I think that, again, that it does translate well to the regular season. It feels like, at least I didn't see any obvious injuries in this game for the Seahawks. We saw the rookie Bryce Cable go down early on. But then to return. So that was very encouraging as well. So again, it just feels like Seattle should be able to continue this momentum. It's going to be much more difficult this next week. They're going to go on the road, of course, to Green Bay Packers. They're going to have the joint practice as well as the game itself. So I do think that obviously it's going to get a little bit more complicated as you go. But I cannot imagine any the 32 teams in the NFL being more excited about their future than Seahawks are feeling right now.
Wow. All right. I love that. Praise from Rob Rang. I want to get your initial thoughts because we kind of just piggybacked on what Chris was saying. So I just kind of want to get your original thoughts, but we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get Rob's thoughts on the game, and then I want to break down the running game. I know we've done that the last 3 episodes, but man, when you dominate that much with whoever's running in there, I think there's a mentality change, and I kind of want to get into that a little bit with these guys. So we'll be right back here on the Seahawks Squad Show on Locked On Seahawks. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone.
Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts and minutes. You see clear data visuals. You get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. Just the fact that there's so many subscriptions that we all have, guys. There are so many different things that we sign up for and that we don't use. Well, Monarch Money is going to help you take care of that, but it's not just going to help you take care of that. It's going to help you take care of all of your finances as well. So it's saving you money by getting rid of those things that you don't need, and it's helping you invest that money in a better place. Thank you so much, Monarch Money.
Yeah, thank you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. We're your post-game show today, or this evening, I should say. Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang with you guys today. We're breaking down the Seahawks 33-16 victory in week 2 of the preseason over the Kansas City Chiefs. A Chiefs team that, as Rob Rang mentioned, played a lot of their starters. And it's not like they're throwing out a rookie quarterback. Gardner Minshew's been there. He's been a starter in the NFL. He's not like this guy that doesn't know what he's doing, right? So the fact that your defense looks so dominant, I think was another positive sign as well. But Rob Rang, what are your initial thoughts on this game? Because I got Chris's earlier today.
Well, obviously, just the running game, I think is going to steal the spotlight and going to be the storyline for a lot of people. I want to talk for a moment about Jake Bobo. I thought that he had a terrific performance. I love the 2 touchdowns. The fact that he made or scored both those touchdowns in very different ways. The first one that was off of a quick little screen, and he just showed some bounce to him. That has been one of the knocks on him. Is does he have enough running ability after the catch? He used his size. He used his flexibility and just his vision to recognize where the hole was and to be able to squirt his way through there for that score. And then the second touchdown to me was just beautiful football. I mean, it was a great throw by Drew Lock. It was a great late adjustment to the ball by Jake Bobo. If he looks back and if he gets his hands up in the air too quickly, then the corner who is covering him is going to be in position to knock the ball away. And that was not just any cornerback. That's Noah Williams, who led all of college football last year as an All-American with 7 interceptions. This is a very talented corner. So for Jake Bobo to just, run, look up, jump up and snatch the ball out of the air, get his feet down and throw the ball up into the stand the way he did, as quickly as he did, it didn't give the cornerback any time to make any type of an adjustment to it. So I thought it was just beautiful football by Jake Bobo. He was standing out in special teams. He was standing out as a run blocker. To me, again, this is a game that everybody is going to focus in on defense. They're going to focus in on the running game for a good reason. But I thought that Jake Bobo really balled out. And frankly, I thought that he needed to do so. Yeah. So I thought that was going to be one of the storylines of this game that maybe gets lost a little bit in all of the glow that is Seattle's running game.
Yeah, Chris, talk about Jake Bobo. I know you want to jump on that as well.
For sure, because one of the things I noticed with Jake Bobo too, and I think Rob hit on the nail on the head that he did score those 2 touchdowns in those 2 different ways. But like after that second touchdown, I don't think it can be completely overstated. Did you see how excited that sideline was when he scored that second touchdown? They went nuts for him. And it's pretty clear that this is one of the most popular dudes in the clubhouse, right? Like this is somebody that they root hard for and want to succeed. Now, that only goes so far, right? Like it's one thing to be that guy. It's another thing to be productive. But I've been so impressed with what I have heard from what he's done in camp and what he has done tonight to show that red zone threat. And with that size, if he can just show a little bit of wiggle on those type of plays, because they're going to play off of him, because you don't want to get a 6'4" guy in the red zone. You want to be able to have something to, prevent that type of play. By the way, Noah Williams leaves with a concussion, I believe, in this game. Ooh. So thoughts with him. That's never something that we like to see. But I was really impressed with him. I also wanted to mention, I thought Tyrese Young played his best game as a Seattle Seahawk as well. And what really impressed me with him is the physicality is obvious, right? Like that guy can really block. He's going to be an outstanding special teams player for his entire career. If for some reason he didn't make the Seahawks, he would get picked up like that because of the fact that they want that guy on special teams. But I thought it was his ability to find space today, because I think that's the one thing sometimes that he struggled a little bit with, is finding that ability. But particularly on that, I believe it was like a 28-yard connection between him and Locke, the ability to find that space and then turn and go with the football. I thought he was really good today. And I think the way, Rob, I think you're right that Jake Bobo needed a good game. I think that Tyrese Young needed one as well, right? Like, because there is so much like talent now in the back of that wide receiver room. I think that this just kind of cemented, though, that those 2 guys are going to be big parts of the Seahawks in 2025.
Yeah, this wide receiver competition's becoming fierce, isn't it, Rob?
It very much is. As Chris just said, I think that Tyrese Young kind of needed that. I thought it was his best performance. Look, he's been kind of typecast a little bit as just an outside receiver, just running vertical routes. I mean, he's obviously so physically imposing. I mean, my goodness, when his NFL career ends and he could be in the, bodybuilding or something. I mean, he is just jacked up
Oh, yeah.
But for him to show the flexibility and to be able to create some space, as you said, Chris, I think that, I think that you nailed it there. I mean, just because that is something that we have not seen from him. And to see both Tariq Young as well as Jake Bobo being used as returners. We've seen them on special teams as the gunners and on, tackling, but not necessarily as returners. So not only obviously do you have to have the ball skills just to be able to track the football, make that catch, and then try to make people miss, but you also have to, again, be able to be flexible enough to kind of, to make people miss, to be able to accelerate quickly, to have the vision and frankly the courage to be able to do all those things. It's a little bit easier when you're a smaller guy because you're quicker typically. When you're a big guy, you're a big target. I've seen a lot of big tall receivers and cornerbacks, even some running backs just get nailed in the chest and they're done. Tariq Young and Jake Bobo, I thought, did a great job of catching the ball and getting it immediately upfield as it stands to try to get as many yards as they possibly could.
A couple more minutes while we're still on the offense. What did we think of Sam Darnold? First impressions in him in a Seahawks uniform. Had, I think, just one series. Ran it pretty efficiently. Gets the Zach Charbonnet touchdown. I'll start with you, Chris Crawford. What was your initial thoughts on Sam Darnold? How he looked?
I thought he looked fine. I don't think that there was too much complication to anything that he was asked to do, but I thought he handled it well. On time with the football. I like the throw, especially to Oots, who I was talking about. Rob Nostradamus Chris made an early prediction, and I said 35 catches for Robbie Oots. I think he's going to be involved, man. I really think, and I talked about this with Mike Holmgren on how much that's going to help the play action passing game too. Guy's going to be open. When you have to pay attention to guys like Cooper Kupp and JSN and, Elijah Arroyo, who I thought played a nice game today as well. When you have to pay attention to that stuff, I think that there's going to be a lot of footballs thrown his way. But I thought it was a very simplistic but solid effort from Darnold. Nothing that really stands out, but nothing that makes you go, uh-oh.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was going to say exactly. That's where I think that the Seahawks were not necessarily concerned that there was going to be an uh-oh moment with Sam Darnold. Everything that I've seen in going to training camp myself and in conversations with scouts and coaches there, when I haven't been there, is that Sam Darnold's been everything that they hoped that he would be. So I think that they were excited for this opportunity for him. But for him to just be as efficient, as cool and calm and collected as he was, I thought that he kind of just knocked it out of the park in that regard. Just because the throws we saw. Now, I hate to knock the rookie Jalen Milroe, but we saw some throws from Milroe that weren't pristine. I mean, they were what I call ballpark accuracy. They were in the ballpark. The receiver is forced to make an adjustment. Sam Darnold's throws hit his receivers in the hands and allowed them to make some yards after the catch. And so I was really encouraged by what he showed. And I think that it's a lot easier to play quarterback when you have a running game as dominant as this is. To Chris's point about the play action passing, and especially to Robbie Oots, but I think that we saw the same thing with Brady Russell later as well, that both those fullbacks were completely wide open because the defense is focusing on others. And so I think that, how'd you say it? Nostradamus Chris. Yeah, exactly. Nostradamus Chris could be right. And 35 receptions seems like a lot to me, but I think that you and Clint Kubiak are thinking along the same lines, that there's just going to be so many easy opportunities. I mean, in almost every situation, the fullbacks were wide open. Right. And so defenses are going to have to adjust to that. And so I think there's going to be an awful lot of reception opportunities for those fullbacks early in the season.
Yeah, what I really liked about Sam Darnold's performance is it showcased exactly what the Seahawks need him to be in this offense. And especially as we move along talking about the mentality change of running the football, 48 rushing attempts today. When's the last time you saw that? As Chris said earlier in the episode, it's a wonderful thing to see, especially when you're executing it, right? And they were so well executed. But when you have that, and Clint Kubiak is like, we're going to run the football. We've seen this. We've heard it as Seahawks fans. You need someone that you can just execute the offense, get in and out of the huddle, and then make the throw when you need to. If you're going to do a nice play action, if you need to roll out once or twice, and then get that third or fourth down when you absolutely need it. So that's just something
say
where
other thing about 48 running attempts. You know what it really does? It makes preseason football go faster.
It does. It does. Thank God. Because it made our episode start a little bit quicker. So Someone had a long day like I had
For
today.
some
It's
of us.
very much
Yeah.
appreciated. Yes. Okay. When we get back, I'm going to ask about maybe a possible concerning area. We'll get to that on the other side of the break on the Locked On Seahawks Squad Show. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before.
This year, me and my squad show are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or you're a veteran who's making your millionth league. Been using Yahoo Football for a long time, been writing blurbs for Yahoo Football for a long time, seeing those updates. I'll start doing it again next week, but they're the very best. It just makes things so much smoother, knowing the fact that Yahoo's going to take care of everything for you. It's a ton of fun. It's, harmless fun too, which is something that you just don't find a heck of a lot of anymore. Yahoo Fantasy Sports is the best.
To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, Yahoo just dropped Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, so welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. This is your post-game show today with the Seahawks 33-16 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang with you. I want to ask you guys, because I almost was like, we had a lot of similar conversations after the game against the Raiders last week about the dominance along the line of scrimmage, the new look offense, and then some positive on the defensive sides as well. But I mentioned last week that one of my concerns was the special teams, because it still looks a little bit sloppy in some areas. And I think that even escalated my fear a little today, because you can start on the first play of the game with the return. Chris said it was a questionable hold. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have those. It's preseason for referees as well, let's remember. But just a punt return for a touchdown, penalties. It just seems like the special teams isn't quite clicking yet. I want to know if you guys share that same concern. Rob, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I do. I think that it should be lessened, because obviously, like with the punt return touchdown, I mean, you're going against the third string special teamers at that point. That said, I do think that it is a concern when you just consider how dynamic some of the special teams units are in the NFL and how much that can change the game. So I think that there's something to be said for that. Sky Moore is a pretty dynamic guy when he actually gets the ball in his hands and keeps it in his hands. And he demonstrated that on that particular play. Drake Thomas getting that holding call on the initial kickoff return, and just kind of mitigating what was a pretty impressive return to start the game. So that was a little disappointing as well. And Drake Thomas is a guy that you do think of as core special teams kind of a player.
Sure.
And that would kind of lead me to one of my concerns. And certainly, Chris, if you want to jump off on the special teams conversation, please feel free to do so. But Drake Thomas, specifically Patrick O'Connell, that inside linebacker position, that to me is one of the concerns I have. It's obviously with a healthy Ernest Jones, a healthy Tyrese Knight. I think Seattle feels pretty good about that. But we haven't seen a healthy Tyrese Knight. We haven't seen a healthy Oluwatimi for 10 consecutive days now and 2 preseason games now. So look, I mean, when you're going up against second string defensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs, that frankly, I didn't think that some of their team looked as motivated to play in the rain as maybe the Seahawks were. Then, obviously they were so successful in running the football, but some of the injuries that are kind of on the sideline and not easy to be paying attention to, considering how successful it was, Seattle was. But again, I think the injury at center and the injuries at inside linebacker, to me, are something that can sprinkle a little bit of rain. Otherwise, it's a pretty sunny performance from the Seahawks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I will say the one thing, the special teams positive for me is that I thought that the kicking game, that operation looked a lot better than it did the week before. So that was nice to see. But the special teams just, and it's part of this is you can't help but remember that there were the special teams issues last year, right? There were issues with stuff in coverage. And you could argue maybe Michael Dixon was going out a little too much with the kicks a little bit, maybe out kicking his coverage just slightly. Like he has the 69-yarder in the end, maybe showing off that leg a little bit, but you'd like to see those guys maintain their coverage a little bit. And the thing I would say is this third preseason game, maybe if it's just as a confidence booster, is something where I want to see that first team special teams unit playing a lot, right? Yeah. Because I want to get that thing as ready as possible. And I know game 3, you're kind of evaluating, to see who are these guys that can help us in special teams at some point. But I do think there is something to be said about like having that unit at the best. And again, Rob, you hit the nail on the head that the inside linebacker backups just are not impressing me at all right now. It has just been late to react to stuff and not making those plays, right? Like I thought there were a lot of improvements in the defense, and we can talk about that in the next segment, but that's my one biggest issue. Actually, there were two. Jalen Milroe did not look good to me. And there were a couple of decent throws, and there's one he's just like, Rob, I'll ask you, breaking down that throw in the end zone there where, maybe the receiver needs to get turned a little bit, but that also seems like a throw that your starting quarterback needs to complete, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I thought there was a couple of throws down in the red zone that Jalen Monroe just not even a starting NFL quarterback, just a functional quarterback, a primary backup. He looked like a rookie. I was hoping to see some improvement from his debut against the Raiders, and I thought that it was telling that the Seahawks played Drew Lock longer in this game. I think that they were a little worried. They didn't want to just hand the keys over to the rookie quarterback and then see a Kansas City Chiefs that squad that does have some explosive playmakers kind of scratch their way back the way that the Raiders did. But yes, there were some plays from Jalen Monroe. I think it's a passer that he would love to be able to take back. One real quick note on Jalen Monroe, though, just to kind of finish on more of a positive note. I love the fact that Seattle took Sam Darnold off the field for a moment, put Jalen Monroe in that short yard situation. Of course, we know that the Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions, and they have the tush push, or, it's in Philadelphia, the brotherly shove. Maybe we're seeing some of the Seattle scrum here. With the ability to kind of be, a team that can also push their quarterback to get those short yardage things. And that's the thing. Jalen Hurts has those massive thighs. He gets short yardage. Jalen Monroe breaks through that line. He could be gone. And so that's one of the things that's so exciting about Milroe. So obviously a work in progress as a passer, but Jalen Milroe's athletic ability, we still haven't quite seen it just yet. But even when it doesn't look like he runs it very far, it's still 5 yards. Yes. So it's still exciting about what the upside that he possesses.
Real quick, there was one run in particular where I think it might have even been his last rush, right? Where like he's rolling to the side, and instead of panicking and turning upfield, he knows he is so fast that let me get east and west or as much as possible, right? And then I can go north and go get that 6 or 7 yards. Like that's the type of stuff you can't teach, right? The ability to know that I am so much faster than these defensive linemen that I don't need to make that push up and risk getting mollywopped by a linebacker. I can keep it on the outside and know that I'm going to get those 5 or 6 yards. The athleticism hasn't been questionable to me. The arm strength hasn't been questionable to me. It's just about the actual result with the process that hasn't been there for me with Jalen Monroe over these first 2 weeks.
So, Rob, are you evaluating that to me, the way you guys are describing it is it's not even an instinctual issue. He knows what to do, and he's reading what he's supposed to read. It's more of a mechanical issue with his throwing.
Yeah, I think it's mechanical. I think that it's very difficult to throw accurately on the move. I think that just takes time. But I have all the confidence that he is going to improve in that regard. And people say, Oh, have you ever seen a quarterback really make that improvement? Absolutely. Josh Allen I think is a perfect example of it. I mean, anybody who watched his tape back at Wyoming all those years ago, I mean, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn at times, and now is the reigning MVP. So yes, you do see quarterbacks, especially guys who have the work ethic that Jalen Monroe possesses. So I thought it was a wonderful selection by the Seahawks when they made it. I just think that we get so enamored with upside that people forget that sometimes it takes some time to develop. But to Chris's point before, yes, there's definitely still a lot of room for improvement in terms of just his mechanics, in terms of his decision making, and ultimately in terms of his accuracy.
Yep. What about Drew Lock? What about the other quarterback? I think, to me, I just keep coming away with this feeling that he's the perfect backup quarterback to have, where he can win you a game if he needs to come in. If you have some sort of injury to Sam Darnold, he can operate the offense. The guys like him. He knows his role. There's no sort of questionability about a quarterback competition. So what did you guys think of Drew Lock's, Chris, I'll start with you, Drew Lock's performance today?
I thought he was fantastic, and I thought he was vastly improved even from the Raiders game. And there were good moments in the Raiders game too, but this was probably the best I've seen Drew Lock play as a Seattle Seahawk. Like, that was really impressive. He was on time with his throws. He was decisive with his throws. I think it also helped that he had a little bit better of a supporting cast in this game too.
Yeah.
More guys to get the football to, but like all of those that throw to Bobo. And again, great job by Bobo of not getting those hands up early, as Rob put it. But he put that football in a perfect spot too. That was one of my favorite throws that I've seen from Drew Lock in his time. I was really impressed with what I saw. There's no quarterback controversy, as you said. This is Sam Darnold's job, and it's going to be Sam Darnold's job. But I felt a lot more confident in what would happen if, goodness forbid, something were to happen to Sam Darnold. I feel a lot more confident if we see that version of Drew Lock going up against. Look, the Chiefs weren't playing their very best players, but there's some guys there. There are some guys there that you would want on your NFL roster.
Right.
And he took advantage of that situation and played outstanding.
Rob, what do you think of Drew Lock today?
Yeah, I agree. I thought that Drew Lock had a really nice game. I thought he just played good complementary football. Didn't try to do too much with the ball. Right. That to me has always been something that I think that Drew can get a little bit, I don't know, cocky, and just try to make some splashy plays. I thought that I thought he almost did on that run where he tried to kind of cut back and go against the grain. I think that he saw the opportunity to scramble for a touchdown.
It was Jalen Milroe for a second.
Exactly, and so I think that was. I think he's probably going to get some teasing from his teammates.
No doubt.
But yeah, I thought that the precision passing was very good. I thought that as Chris mentioned, I thought that he was decisive with the football. If it wasn't there, that he was tucking the ball and running at times, which that wasn't something that he often did. In his previous NFL experiences, and then even at Missouri back in college. And so it was good to see him be. Push the envelope a little bit without being reckless. And it feels like,
there you go.
Watching Drew Lock at times, it almost feels like there's going to be a play or two in every game where there's going to be a questionable decision. It was good to see him kind of harness that against an opponent that obviously Seattle was kind of walking up and down the field on them whenever they wanted.
Yeah, I think that's a great description of it, great evaluation. When we come back, I want to talk about the defense because we've talked mostly offense, and again, rightly so. I've mentioned this a couple times. It's where all the changes are in this team this year. It's where the issues lied last year, but we still have to see an uptick in production defensively. If Mike Macdonald has the team that he thinks he has, then we have to see an elite defensive group. I want to ask you guys if that's what you've seen in these first two games, right on the other side of the break on the Seahawks Squad Show. Welcome back to the Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang. Let's talk a little defense from Seattle's 33-16 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, we mentioned right before the break that I really need to see that step up. I know the defense was very solid last year, especially the second half of the year. I just think that there's that next level, especially in a Mike Macdonald coach system where you could be a top 5, top 3 defense in the league. Chris, what have you seen in these first two games, and evaluate how you think it might be different from last year?
I thought the defense was really good tonight. And what's fun about, I think, This is more positive than negative.
Okay.
I don't think anyone really individually stood out to me outside of Seth Coleman in the fourth quarter, who I thought played a terrific football game. But that first unit, like, it was just cohesive, like close to dominance, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, man, just seeing Ernest Jones in the middle, like seeing that guy play is just such a treat, because we've been spoiled with Bobby Wagner and we have been not spoiled with not Bobby Wagner, to put it mildly. And I thought he played a terrific football game and is just one of the most underrated middle linebackers in the sport, I think. I thought they were they made plays on the football. There were no like silly mistakes. I didn't see like Josh Joe being picked on, like the last week. We didn't see any of that type of stuff. There were no like individual gaffes. It was just solid football. And, Gardner Minshew is not exactly the greatest test, if I'm being completely honest with you. But hey, they got the job done, and they made that first half in particular, that defense was just fantastic.
All right, Rob, what do you think of the defense?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that that their ability to plug the running lanes, all night long was impressive, especially consider that you don't have Jaron Reed out there. Obviously, you don't have Leonard Williams out there. If I was to kind of, just pick nits, I think that you'd like to see a little bit more pass rush that actually resulted in the quarterback going down. But I think that that the way that Mike McDonald called, and Adam Durde as well as defensive coordinator, obviously, the way they called games, where they have so many simulated blitzes, and then a lot of times they were sending the house. I think that that it just forces the quarterback to make a quick decision, and a lot of times they panic and just throw the ball out of bounds and live to play another down. And obviously, that is eliminating most of the opportunities for the offense to do much of anything, especially if it's any kind of explosive play downfield. And so I just thought that they kind of controlled the game from the outset. And again, when you get Leonard Williams back onto the field, then I think that you're going to see those sack numbers, explode. We talked about before that there's some concern as far as depth at the inside linebacker position. To Chris's point before about Ernest Jones being on the field, I mean, my goodness, what a difference that makes. And so that was very exciting just to kind of see that. I thought it was interesting that Patrick O'Connell got the start in this game, whereas Drake Thomas got the start last time. And again, it was Drake Thomas who had the holding penalty early on. So that's a positional battle that I think bears watching here. It'll be interesting to see if Tyrese Knight is not on the field in week 3 against the Packers, then who gets that start? Because I didn't think that Drake Thomas or Patrick O'Connell, as we talked about, either one of them were, eye-popping in a good way or really a bad way. They just were kind of just guys. And so that's a little disappointing for me, because I'm a big Drake Thomas guy. I love his instincts, but I want to see more explosive plays from them. From the linebackers. So to me, I thought that the defense played very well. Again, it's a lot easier when your offense is scoring just about every damn time they have the ball. But I do want to make sure that we've gone far enough into the show here. We've got to mention Brennan Peely. I mean, that safety was just a terrific individual effort for a guy of that size to get that low and be that quick and shooting that gap. That was a spectacular play for the safety. And Drake Thomas actually kind of followed up with the tackle behind him. So I got to give some credit there if I'm going to be critical of Drake Thomas. But again, I thought that to see some of the so-called unheralded players games, as you mentioned, be able to make some of those plays, I think, again, that's what preseason football is all about. And it was exciting to see some of the Seahawks defensive players make those plays.
Yeah. So for me, like, I love what you said about the pass rush, because that's something that I've been really kind of keeping an eye on. And it reminded me of a conversation I had with Turbo and Corbin yesterday on our previous Seahawks squad show, that similarly to how the running game opens up the passing game, stopping the run opens up the pass rush, because it forces teams to throw in longer yardage situations. So I think that's going to be, and that's the thing that we've seen the most uptick, I think, in this preseason in these first 2 games, is the stopping of the run. So if that continues, you will get more opportunities to rush the passer, and then hopefully that turns into more production. Chris, you were going to mention something.
Yeah. So what I was going to ask Rob was, so if Tyrese Knight is not at 100% for that first week, does that change your thought at all about who's going to be playing more at safety for you? Because like Nick Amenworry, I can't help but watch that guy play and think, oh, that guy's going to be a lot more effective at stop. Now, Kobe Bryant is not a bad run defender either, but like having that size safety like that, would you want to see Nick Amenworry playing more if you do not have a healthy Tyrese Knight for that game?
I would. I just am terrified of the idea of Nicky Manwari being matched up one-on-one with either George Kittle or Christian McCaffrey in the first week. Now, that said, I mean, he's such a dynamic athlete. He has such great size that I think that's going to be the best option that you have. Because, again, Patrick O'Connell or Drake Thomas, I think they're just going to get overmatched against the Christian McCaffrey, for example. And we know what a great player that George Kittle can be as well. And so, again, it's a kind of a terrifying proposition from a Seahawks perspective. That's why I think that I'd like to think that they are basically keeping Tyrese Knight kind of in bubble wrap and kind of hoping that he will be ready, even if he doesn't play against Green Bay, that hopefully he'll be ready so that we can have their starting inside linebackers. But otherwise, I think that is going to be the key to the game against the 49ers is who do the Seahawks have, again, as we talked about, at center position, and then, of course, the inside linebacker position as well.
All right, last question before we get out of here. It's a version of Predict the Future, so Nostradamus Chris will make his appearance here. Who made the team tonight that wasn't on the roster heading into the game? Chris, I'll start with you.
Oh, that's a really good one. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm just going to say Jake Bobo. It's the safe one, but I think Jake Bobo kind of solidified his spot on the roster today. I think he was going to get there anyway because he's such a good run blocker as well, and he's going to be so important to that. I was also thinking about mentioning both Damian Martinez and George Alani. We didn't get a really chance to talk about the individual running back. I thought both of those guys played terrific football games today. I think you're going to see 4 running backs make this team. And now, maybe not because you could do the practice squad thing and have one of those guys come up when necessary. But do you really want to risk losing either one of those guys to the practice squad? I'm not sure I do. So I would go with one of those 3, which is Nostradamus Chris copping out to be sure. But I would go with Jake Bobo as the safe play.
All right, Rob, who made the team tonight?
Well, that was one of the players I was certainly thinking of. It. We talked about Jake Boba and Tariq Young. Those are guys that jumped out to me. I love the fact that Bryce Cabledew came back onto the field. Look, he was going to be a practice squad guy at minimum, but he was their number 2 left guard. And when he bounced out and they put in Satoa Laumea, he immediately was beaten for a couple of plays, got a hold a little bit later. And so I thought that it was kind of like the quarterback situation where it's very clearly a number 1 or number 2 and number 3. I think that there's very clearly, a number 1 in Gray Zabel and number 2 in Bryce Cabledew. And then who knows what's going to happen at that number 3 guard position. So I think that Bryce Cabledew to me, helped his game certainly as well. And then because we talked about with Drake Thomas and with Patrick O'Connell at the inside linebacker positions, I was waiting to see somebody else, maybe a De'Aaron Jackson or Jamie Sheriff make a play at the inside linebacker position. If you are concerned at all about Tyrese Knight, I think you got to kind of go with just the consistency that is Drake Thomas or Patrick O'Connell at that inside linebacker spot. They're not exciting necessarily, but I also think that you know what you're going to get with them. They're going to be assignment sound, and so I think that they, based on the injury questions with others, they probably are feeling a lot more confident that they're going to be on this roster as well.
This guy didn't make the roster, but I will say it made it closer, I think. I mentioned Seth Coleman. I thought he was really impressive at the end of that game as well, showing that power speed combination from a defensive line that has just, they've done a solid job, I think, against the run, but just haven't been there for the pass rush, as you guys have mentioned. Seeing him get to the quarterback, 1.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. I don't think he's a lock by any stretch of the imagination to make the roster. He's going up against a lot of guys who have some experience, but he at least made the decision a little more interesting tonight.
I like it. I like the quick shout out there, a little unsung hero. So
there you go.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Really appreciate it. Seahawks get this win. They are 1-0-1 in the preseason, if that matters to anyone. But we'll take the win tonight because I think it was a pretty dominant showing from both sides of the football. Questionable in special teams, but hopefully there's just some kinks to work out there. We'll talk to you guys a little bit earlier next week before I believe it's another Thursday game for the final preseason game. Let me double check. It's a Saturday game, excuse me. So it is a Saturday, a 1:00 game against the Packers. The Seahawks go on the road. So we'll have your post-game show then as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in with us today. This is your Seahawks Squad Show. Anderson Hurst, Chris Crawford, Rob Rang. We also have Robert Turbin and Corbin Smith join in every once in a while, just kind of a rotating cast of those guys. And it's awesome. We like breaking down kind of long form Seahawks football with you guys. We have one of the shows each week as a post-game show. So we get to have late nights like this when it's a 7:00 start. So really appreciate you guys, Rob and Chris. You guys are the man. Both of you. You guys are the men, I should say. I've had a long day, so I'm going to get out of here. It's been awesome talking to you guys. We'll talk to you next time on the Seahawks Squad Show.
Sounds great.